Hey folks, in this video I'd like to talk about terms rhythm and timing in relation to playing music. We will predominantly look at the genres where punch and impact are important, and these genres are pop, rock music, hard rock, heavy metal, etc. Most of us have heard people say things like tight bend, tight rhythm section, tight groove, good timing, but what do they actually mean? When is the timing good and when is it not good? When is the rhythm tight and when is it loose? And I think I will be able to explain this in this video. So let's take a riff from a song called Play the Game by heavy rock band Motorhead. This is how it sounds in the original version. Heavy drums, lots of distorted guitars, but does it really sound punchy? So I have made another version of the same riff, but it sounds very different overall. I'm not talking about mixing nuances or tone in general, but rather in terms of the groove and the punch. Here we go. Okay, let's have a listen, just one next to each other. Original first. And the alternative. Most people will say that the second version genuinely sounds better. More specifically, it could be argued that it delivers more punch, more drive, and more impact. However, it's not necessarily obvious why this is the case. Let's try and figure this out. And here we are in the actual project of my alternative version of the riff. It's a typical rock song, a rock arrangement with the instruments involved: drums, bass guitar, and main rhythm guitar, which is obviously double-tracked. Of these three instruments, drums are by far the most punchy and deliver much higher impact than the other two instruments. This is largely due to the very fast attack of the snare and kick drums. Attack in musical sense is defined as the initial part of the envelope of sound, or in simpler terms it means how fast the sound goes from total silence to its full intensity and spectrum. So if we zoom in, let's just have a look at the kick and the snare drums, at their waveforms. They have very fast attack. As you can see, it's almost like a wall, right? For a snare, very similar for kick. And then if we look at the other two instruments, bass and electric guitars, they have slower attack, especially the guitars, right? So electric guitars always have this artifact sort of thing between or before it reaches its full intensity over here. And these pre-rolls can be as long as 24 milliseconds, or even longer in some cases. So again, this is the attack of the bass and guitars. And then this is the attack of the kick and the snare. Clear difference. So if there is an instrument with an extremely fast attack and hence high punch and impact, the snare or kick drum, it makes sense to fully utilize this feature of them, exaggerate it, and certainly not hinder it. Logically, this means that slower attack instruments such as bass and guitars should never get in the way of the kick or snare drums, so that this initial punch snap of kick or snare is preserved. while the guitar or bass can take the space between the drum hits and fill that void, which is exactly what they're designed to do. So the most important thing that defines tightness and drive of a riff is timing, which is basically how these three instruments interact between each other in time. Let's just go back to these two versions of the Motorhead riff and have a little bit of a closer look. As we remember from the alternative project, this is what the waveform of the snare and kick look like. Very easy to spot, right? If you look at the original recording, this is clearly a snare, a wall of attack, and nothing ahead or behind. Let's have a listen from the beginning. There's three kick hits over here, but it's almost impossible to spot them, to spot the kick drum. It's just lost, so it's probably start somewhere here, right? But as you can see, there's a lot of things happening in front of the kick hit. And this is guitars, because they're played ahead of the kick by quite a lot, by 80 milliseconds. The kick, therefore, is lost its impact because the guitars are ahead of it and they're spoiling this snap, the punch of the kick. Once again, this is what it sounds like. Let's just slow down the playback to 50%. And have a closer listen. First guitars and then the kick. On the alternative version, even visually, this is a snare when no guitars are around, and this is a kick. As you can see, it's nothing in front of the kick, because the guitars are purposely played slightly behind, and they're sort of hidden behind the kick. They're filling up this void, but they're not coming ahead of the kick. Well, let's have a listen. As you can hopefully hear, it makes a huge difference in regards to the punch and impact. So let's slow down again to 50%. Listen closely. Just here. Very clear, very punchy, noticeable kick, and no guitars in front of it. As you can hear, this makes significant difference as to how the riff is perceived in general and how much impact it delivers. Hopefully I've been able to demonstrate that where guitars are played ahead of the drums, the riff will never sound punchy. Good timing means that guitars are consistently either on a beat or slightly behind the drums. And bad timing means guitars are either ahead or all over the place in relation to the drums. As I have shown, there's pure logic behind it, and guitar or bass players that are playing ahead of the drums are just doing it wrong. In the example we looked at, Motorhead either didn't know it, didn't care, were drunk, or I don't know, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that the recording sounds very sloppy. It's a heavy rock song, so obviously it needs a lot of impact. And by the way, it's a soundtrack to wrestling events, so definitely needs punch, but instead it's done very sloppy. What we looked at is a basic aspect of timing in rock and similar genres. The more advanced things are, for example, how much behind the drums should the guitar be before it's really too much. Can they be exactly on the beat? how can it be used to change the groove, the dynamics of a song, and so on. But all of this requires a guitar or bass player to understand the fundamentals of rhythm and timing, be able to play exactly on a beat, and only then you can start looking at doing different things with your timing and groove. So there's a simple thing that any guitar or bass player can do, and I definitely recommend anyone to do this. You basically record yourself and listen and visually check where you are in a audio editing software. The initial results may be less than pleasant or even shocking. You may be all over the place, and if you're just starting, you most likely will be all over the place, because nobody is born with the ability to be straight on the beat. It takes a lot of time, it's hard work, but it definitely pays off if you want your riffs to sound crisp and punchy. And finally, just to demonstrate the validity of what I have just gone through, let's just look at some real-world examples. World-class recording, a few of them, and just pay attention to rhythm and timing on them. The records are by totally different bands, styles, and even different eras, but they share one thing in common. They're very tight and punchy as far as the rhythm goes. Note how this first power chord is played. The record is made back in 1980. There was no way, no means of visually editing the tracks back then or do anything like that. So this is an example of great musicianship from AC/DC as far as the timing and rhythm is concerned. Moving on to more modern recordings.
Here's to the pain, the light of the oncoming train. Come on, oh to solitude in
Again, just a absolutely huge punch here, and the intention in this part of the song from a softer to the harder sort of part is clearly for the kick to kick you in the guts. Imagine if that was played as sloppy as Motorhead did in their riff. Clearly the producer of the song knew what he or she was doing, and it is recorded properly and is delivered maximum impact. Another modern, relatively modern recording. Excellent timing. And finally, two, in my opinion, ultimate examples of great timing and groove. The first one is Joe Satriani's song, ironically called Time. It's not heavy at all, but timing is such a big part of riff here that it just cannot be overrated, so have a listen. And then look at this. Same thing. Slowing down. Look at this. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching.